Hi guys, a lot of people have enjoyed my Genshin Impact lore videos and have said they're pretty relaxing, so I figured I'd put them all in one big video for you guys to enjoy. Feel free to have this on in the background as something to relax to, or maybe you'll learn something new about your favorite game. Hope you enjoy. Who is Keqing? Growing up in a higher class family of noble birth, Keqing grew to become the Yuheng of the Liyue Qixing. She's known for being extremely skeptical of the gods and archons, and as a member of the Qixing, she highly questions Rex Lapis's authority. She recognizes that he's looked over Liyue for centuries, but questions whether or not he will going forward. She questions if he really knows everything, and if he really knows what's best for the people of Liyue.
What do you think has kept Liyue going over the last millennium? Rex Lapis? I disagree. We mortals have to fight for survival whatever happens. He just feels the need to come down here and poke his nose into everything that's going on for some reason. People don't like to think about this, but should we really be trusting him to be an expert in everything?
If their Archon were to suddenly leave, what would happen to the people of Liyue? She often holds opposing views to those of Rex Lapis, but despite her skepticism, Rex Lapis himself respects her and says that Liyue could use more people like her. She strongly believes that humans' views should have equal importance to the views of the gods, and believes that humanity would be better off on its own without the Archons. But through her skepticism, she very much just wants the best for Liyue. One of Keqing's political recommendations is to click the subscribe button. Keqing is extremely hardworking and rarely ever takes breaks. She has a strong sense of responsibility to her job and those she takes care of. She does not rest until her job is done, and if she sees something that needs done, she prefers to do it herself. She strives for efficiency and is very much a perfectionist. She works so hard and tirelessly that no assistant she's ever hired has made it past 3 months of working with her. Something that she carries with her always is an electro-infused hairpin. She uses it as a knife, weapon, and overall survival tool for fishing, cooking, fire, and so on. Her hairpin never leaves her side. She's also been known to be skeptical about the value of visions as well as her own vision. For many years she saw her vision as a curse and an insult from the gods. She believed it to be imbued with divine will, which would directly oppose her views of humanity not needing the gods. She saw it as a curse because over everything she wants to be valued for her hard work, alone, without others seeing it as a gift from the gods because of her vision.
If a vision means the approval of the gods, then I don't see why I should want one. In fact, I find it quite insulting. It's like trying to say everything I've ever achieved is all thanks to the gods looking out for me. Well, I got to where I am today through my own hard work. The gods had nothing to do with it.
She believed that having a vision stole the credit for her work, credit that she believed should be hers alone, and she began to resent her vision. Ironically, it was most likely given to her by the gods as a result of her hard work and dedication. She even tried to destroy her vision multiple times by leaving it in a fire for multiple days, running it over with a minecart, and even throwing it off the top of the Jade Chamber. All of her attempts were unsuccessful though, and not wanting the vision to fall into the wrong hands, she eventually grew to accept it as her own, stating that the source of the power is far less important than the character of its user. She used it as a tool for practicality after realizing it wasn't imbued with any sort of divine will after all, and could prove to be useful. After the events of the Archon Quest, Keqing does gain a lot of respect for Rex Lapis. Spoiler warning ahead, skip a few seconds if you don't want to hear this. After Rex Lapis's death, Liyue is left to its own, just as Keqing was worried about. At first she was very happy about this change. She saw it as a way to further prove her hard work and dedication. But after a few months being stuck on the same task, she began to realize how useful Rex Lapis actually was when he was around. She was able to get things done as more and more tasks piled up around her, but not with nearly as much ease as Rex Lapis could with his vast amount of knowledge. So even though she still doesn't like Archons and gods, she can see a little bit of how they are helpful and they do care for their people. Though her outward appearance can be harsh to some, in reality Keqing is just very passionate about her views, work, and she does the best she can to care for those around her. Who is Kaveh? Residents of Sumeru likely know his name well. To them, Kaveh is a well-known architect who many have described to be a genius. He's one of the most high-profile figures in Sumeru's architectural industry. He puts everything into his work, literally everything he has, and we'll discuss that later in this video.
I'm glad you gave me a chance. I always think it takes people with similar tastes to sustain a pleasant conversation. Nice to meet you. I'm Kaveh, an architect. If you have a project you'd like me to work on, then I'll need a detailed description of what you have in mind.
As an honors Kashar War graduate, Kaveh has a passion for the arts. He greatly appreciates the aesthetics of architecture, mechanics, and design. He's greatly empathetic and thoughtful towards everyone he meets, and is known for helping anyone he sees who's in need, even going as far as to provide his own mora. Once he even purchased dozens of keychains from a vendor whose proceeds were to go to feeding hungry children. He believes that mutual assistance and fairness are the keys to success. Kaveh is very passionate about his career as an architect. His greatest work and masterpiece is the Palace of Alcazar-Zure. Due to his outstanding work, he's seen as a role model to other Kashar students. To this day, students idolize him for his projects, some of which being single-handedly designing the Palace of Alcazar-Zure, renovating the lighthouse of Port Ormos, modifying the port's elevators and cargo structures, and his role in the spatial optimization of the surrounding areas. Many students only dream of having a resume like this. His reputation is fully due to his work. He puts his heart and soul into his projects and spares no effort. Kaveh pays special attention to the aesthetic aspects of his designs and creations.
You must have seen the Palace of Alcazar-Zure before. That's my magnum opus. I sacrificed so much for that. Everyone else thought I'd lost my mind. Well, if you're not me, and you don't share my trade, I wouldn't expect you to understand. It'd be nice to meet someone who did understand, though.
Interestingly enough though, despite his fame, reputation, and seemingly successful career, not many know much else about him. Nobody knows the truths that he keeps hidden behind his stories, especially not that the man has gone completely bankrupt over a singular project. Those who are aware tend to keep it a secret, and Kaveh himself is terrified of the secret getting out. The titles he's known for don't affect him personally, rather to him they can be seen as shackles at times. As an example, he believes that somebody with no fame could outwardly live by the means they have. A famous architect couldn't just admit to being penniless without causing others' views of him to change. To prevent this, he outwardly wears a facade of a man living in leisure. He's terrified to admit the truth of his situation publicly because he doesn't want people to see him as less. So though he may show it on the outside by wearing fancy designer clothes, helping others, and seeming overall happy, Kaveh is far from living his ideal life. So how did he lose everything he owned? That's a long and complicated story, so let's just start at the beginning. Kaveh was born into a scholarly family in Sumeru, his father being from the Ruwahi Starshan and once working for the academia, and his mother being a Kashar War graduate and a famous architect herself. Kaveh was inspired by them at a young age and was very interested in architectural design, even playing with block puzzles as a child. It was there that young Kaveh would gain his understanding of home. His happy family life would not last forever though. At some point during Kaveh's childhood, partly due to Kaveh's encouragement, his father would join the Erdarshan Championship. His father would just barely miss becoming champion and proceed to go missing for some time after his defeat. His disappearance would terrify Kaveh and his mother. Unfortunately, following this, some tragic news would come to the family. His father had died in an accident in the desert. While Kaveh's mother would fall into intense anxiety and depression, Kaveh would blame himself for his father's death. He thought that if he hadn't encouraged his father to join the competition, none of this would ever have happened. Seeing his mother unable to smile again, Kaveh would live with this guilt for the remainder of his life. His definition of home shattered, and no matter how much he wished, nothing could take back the past. At the time, there was little he could do because of his young age. Out of guilt, he always kept his mother company and did his best to support her in any way possible. As he grew up and enrolled in school, he would inevitably spend less and less time with his mother. It wasn't his fault, he was just growing up. Eventually, she decided to travel to Fontaine, and after receiving a job offer, she left home for good. This would leave Kaveh completely alone in his once happy and safe childhood home. He would deeply miss her, but he knew this was what was best for her. And despite his internal feelings, he would never once admit his overwhelming loneliness. He believed that as someone capable of harming his father, he deserved all that came to him. His tragic early life is what taught him to care for others, and set his mindset. For many years onward, Kaveh would continue helping anyone and do anything they asked of him, but no matter what he does or how much he helps others, the guilt still remains. After graduating, Kaveh began his work by helping with a group project project with the other students of the same darshan. The work would weigh on him heavily, but he would put all of his energy into it. It would end up with him shouldering the project's work for the other students for 2 entire years. But after gaining enough experience, he left that in order to pursue work under his own name. This marked the beginning of his career as an architect, and through his hard work he was able to save up quite a bit of mora. Soon though, he ran into issues. The demands of the market became very different from academic design. His clients' requests became harder and harder to meet as artistic design became less and less relevant, partly due to the ideal of the 6 sages. Kaveh would suggest various beautiful designs only to be rejected on them being meaningless and non-practical. Felt as if he had no freedom with his designs, with everyone being skewed towards necessity and practicality. He was forced to stick to these ideals though that he didn't particularly like because his projects required investments and funding. With his career and his dreams at odds, Kaveh gave himself a long vacation. Upon returning, he would find a letter from his mother informing him that she had decided to remarry in Fontaine. Kaveh would take part in the wedding and was grateful to see his mother smile once again. Afterwards, returning to Samara, he would feel lost and lonely once again, having nothing but himself and the empty childhood home that his mother had left to him. The more he worked in the construction industry, the stronger his dislike of society became. Soon though, a turning point came when he was sought out by a wealthy merchant, Dory, to construct a private mansion. She only had 2 conditions: that the mansion be large and extravagant. Kaveh would question her regarding details of the design, but she was uninterested. Only that she wanted it to be built in a secluded place for business purposes, which Kaveh was careful not to ask too many questions about. But as for aesthetics, Dory let Kaveh do as he wished, which was perfect for him. Mansion construction without limits is exactly what he would want to put his all into. Dory would provide the mora and resources, Kaveh would do the work. Simple business practice. Kaveh was insistent on his design going down in history. Precisely planned and picked everything to the tiniest detail. From the beautiful cliffside location to the placement of flowers in the extravagant garden, everything seemed to be going perfectly. That is, until the unpredictable happened. Even with every consideration Kaveh had made, he never would have predicted that the Withering would move in overnight when the mansion was 70% complete. Before strangers were able to disperse the Withering, the entire building and years worth of work were beyond saving. This angered both Dory and Kaveh. He begged her to allow him to rebuild and finish his work on the Palace of Alcazarzaray. However, Dory would point out that he was the one who made the final decision for the location of the mansion. If she were to allow him to rebuild, who would cover the losses? Over the course of that night, Kaveh sat atop the ruins contemplating. He had his own savings and the property his mother had left to him. Did it even feel like home anymore anyway? He made a final decision. He sold his childhood home and took that money along with his own savings to Dory, which accounted for 70% of the necessary mora required for the construction of the Palace of Alcazarzaray. Dory agreed and was willing to pay for the final 30%. This is how Kaveh, a famous architect, lost everything. The palace was completed on a beautiful sunny day and Kaveh had truly given his all to the construction. This was his greatest architectural achievement, though in the end the property didn't belong to him in the slightest and left him completely bankrupt. Dory also requested payment for the final 30%, which left Kaveh highly in debt to her. While he did what he could to oppose and resist this, his own guilt and ideals consumed him and he agreed to pay. Dory could immediately sense that he was only paying not for her sake, but for the sake of his own ideals, and she took full advantage of that. Kaveh would then become homeless for a period of time after the construction was finished. Now directionless, broke, and living in a world run by Mora, Kaveh felt completely lost. But due to how he was raised, he refused to let anyone know of the situation. His colleagues praised him for his astounding work on the palace, the human narrative to its design, craftsmanship, and his imagination. But they would all remain unaware that this project had cost him literally everything. Kaveh would frequently find himself at a local tavern and turning to alcohol to comfort himself. His body wasn't very tolerant either, collapsing only after 1 bottle.
I like to have a drink or two when I've got the time. It's a good way to de-stress. Oh, yeah, I mean, mostly just to pass the time. What's that look for? Alright, I admit it. Maybe I do drown my sorrows a little more often than I was letting on. It all gets a bit too much sometimes, with the unfinished projects, obstacles that I can't overcome, misunderstandings with other people. don't you struggle with those kinds of things as well?
Lambad, the owner of the tavern, reserved a seat and a few free drinks for him, and as thanks, Kaveh helped him redesign the booth and the seating area. Occasionally, Kaveh would run into old friends from his time at the academia. They'd drink together, talk, and gather inspiration. Eventually, though, he would encounter someone, an old friend and academia scribe named Al-Haytham. He enrolled later than most of his age. Al-Haytham's grades and expertise at the academia stood out above the rest. He was mysterious, and nobody knew where to find him normally, but when others heard his name, he was known for his intelligence. Old researchers from the Kashar War would say that he's too intelligent for his own good and hard to get along with. When Kaveh first met him, he would meet him in the academia and speak to him out of curiosity. He would soon realize that Al-Haytham was extremely talented and gifted, much like himself, but was also completely different from him in regards to personality, social interactions, and academic direction. Kaveh's least favorite memories from school were those of a group project he and Al-Haytham took on together. They each recognized each other's abilities and decided to conduct research on ancient structures, runes, and linguistics. At first this was a group project, but it was quickly left to just Kaveh and Al-Haytham as the other students couldn't keep up and began to drop out. Arguments first arose when Kaveh attempted to stop the students from dropping off the project and wanted to help them to understand their work, while Al-Haytham saw this as charity, useless, and would not change their differences in ability. Eventually, with only the two left on the project, disputes between them only got worse and worse.
I guarantee you'll never meet anyone else who's as infuriating as him. And for the record, yes, I would say that to his face. Sure, he's smart, and sure, geniuses often come with a bad temper. But that's only half the story with him. He knows perfectly well how to appear friendly and likable to others, he just doesn't want to. If he ever gives you the impression that he doesn't really have a temper, or that he's rigidly logical like a machine, then you just don't know him well enough yet. He definitely has a personality, it's just too big a personality. Most people wouldn't get it.
Kaveh saw Al-Haytham as egotistical, and that he'd be much more welcomed by people if he was just willing to help out. Al-Haytham saw Kaveh as the opposite. He pointed out that Kaveh's idealism would come to be a burden of his existence one day, and was only fueled by his inescapable sense of guilt that he still carried from his father's death. The two would quickly part when Al-Haytham pointed this out to Kaveh's face. This failed project would become an unavoidable part of Kaveh's past, and after losing everything due to his work on the Palace of Alcazar, Kaveh would finally see the meaning in his old friend's words.
Someone set up a stand on the street saying that for each handmade keychain they sold, a child in poverty would be given a meal. Kaveh bought at least a dozen. This is Sumeru, where even healthcare is free. I needn't say more.
Meeting Al-Haytham in the tavern was the last thing Kaveh expected. After reconnecting, Kaveh unloaded his unfortunate life story to his old friend, finally telling someone where everything went wrong. Al-Haytham, though, seeing through him once again, would ask, "How was realizing your ideals gone for you?" At this point, Kaveh was at a loss. Soon after, Kaveh would find himself roommates with Al-Haytham, living in a house converted from the same research station that the academia had provided them with back in the day. Kaveh, still plagued with his guilty conscience, would mention helping out with household chores, only to be burdened with them himself. He saw that his past friend hadn't, and will never, change. But at such a low point in his life, he was satisfied just to have a roof over his head. Also, fun fact, these two characters are the only ones with a shared idol.
Where's my...
Wait.
Just the time to accompany them. Foolish to
Again.
Whatever.
Al-Haytham does respect Kaveh as a master builder and craftsman. He sees him as a mirror of himself, but believes his personality and values do not match his abilities. He believes him to be emotionally fragile and far too considerate of others.
He tends to be overly sensitive about everyone and everything he crosses paths with, and he's constantly making a fuss about nothing. Maybe it's because he's too emotionally fragile.
Something Kaveh always has with him is his sketchbook. This old leather-bound book has pages and scraps from things from all over the course of Kaveh's life. It includes drawings, journal entries, quotes, clippings, all of Kaveh's memorabilia. During his time as a student, Kaveh was often busy with various projects, in which he would visit various ruins with his fellow students. On one of their studies, there was a cave-in, nearly trapping Kaveh and two others in the ruin. Kaveh was able to push them out though, and just barely escape himself with only a couple minor wounds. He had heard of things called visions, but originally thought that they would appear during moments of crisis. Having been through a crisis already, he figured that he had not received the favor of the gods and eventually ceased to think about visions for some time. He just continued on with his life. This continued until the first version of the Palace of Alcazarzare was destroyed by the Withering. Once he made his decision to do as he felt right, he sold his home and belongings the next day, and then would invest every single mora he had into rebuilding the Palace of Alcazarzare. After selling the sale of the house, he returned one last time. He used flatbread to make a simplified version of the palace. This type of dish was taught to him by his father, and he had not made it since his father's passing. Once he finished making the dish, he decided to smash it and start eating. But when he smashed it, he saw a shimmering dendro vision laying inside the bread on the center of his plate. Unable to believe it, he accepted the vision, though this favor had arrived many years too late.
I almost don't want to say this out loud, but sometimes hopes and dreams bring suffering instead of happiness. Luckily, I don't mind my vision.
Kave's story is a saddening one, but it shows the story of a man willing to lose everything in order to achieve his dreams. Who is Zhao?
This ancient adeptus, known as the Vigilant Yaksha or Conqueror of Demons, is sworn to protect the people of Liyue for all eternity, though that's kind of the Raiden Shogun's thing.
If you awake to a knife at your throat, if monsters dig their claws into you, if death comes knocking at your door, call out my name. Adeptus Xiao. I will be here when you call.
Zhao is a Yaksha who fought in the Archon War. He's the last living Yaksha from a group of 6. They have visages similar to Pyro, Hydro, Geo, Electro, and Animo. Him, with the power of Animo, still remains in Liyue to this day.
Before the Archon War thousands of years ago, Zhao was enslaved by a cruel master and forced to hurt many people and kill many more. Rex Lapis, the Geo Archon, freed this Yaksha from this fate, and Zhao has stayed loyal to him ever since.
Zhao is his name given to him by Rex Lapis for his own protection. His Yaksha name is General Elatus.
He does not want sympathy for his cruel past, though he feels extremely grateful to the Geo Archon for saving him. As payment, and per their contract, Zhao has dedicated his life to defending Liyue. He does not look kindly upon those who talk down on Rex Lapis.
Morax? What do you know of this name? He gave me the name Xiao, and released me from the endless pain I endured. I will not forgive those that dare to speak against him. Even you.
Though he has seniority among Liyue's adepti, he has little desire for interaction with mortals. Zhao is not an adepti that lavishes devoted humanity with power and gifts. He fights the demons and gods left over from the Archon War that threaten Liyue and its people to this day. Entities that Rex Lapis defeated thousands of years ago, burying them deep within the ground.
Gods are immortal, however, and though they may not physically still be alive, their powers and hatred still remain, and are able to cause harm. This is what Zhao protects Liyue from. An unknown and a thankless job, a war that will never end.
Within the time of destruction that Zhao was forced to perpetuate, a power he calls karma seeped into his soul and tainted it. The karmic debt is a result of the hatred that the ancient gods held for mortals. This is the same power that caused the other 5 Yaksha to either succumb or die to it. It causes physical pain and mental degradation.
The fracturing and defeat of the ancient gods' evil manifestations by the Yaksha is what caused the 6 Yaksha's souls to be tainted. Though Zhao remains very resilient to the pain, corruption, and any hatred, he has almost succumbed to it once, but was saved by the sound of a flute played by the Animo Archon.
Venti? So that's the name he goes by. His tunes are... forget it.
The amount of karma that he's accumulated over the years is enough to consume his flesh and soul. Zhao's true battle is the resistance of karma within himself.
The only thing that relieves himself of this pain is the sound of a flute and the kindness given to him by the traveler. It is due to this that Zhao prefers to be alone and rarely interacts with others. He never wants to accidentally hurt anyone, and only to protect them from the monsters left over that roam the lands of Liyue. He is forlorn but dedicated, and he avoids contact with humanity out of fear that his karma will hurt the people he fights to protect.
Because of his self-isolation, he's unfamiliar with many of humanity's social customs, often finding them strange and pointless. Though he can appear intimidating to others, much of his personality comes from him being afraid to hurt others due to his past. Deep down he is caring, but fears showing that side of himself.
Do not fall prey to the darkness. I have no mercy. Though, perhaps you can stand your ground alone. I'm willing to protect you. But don't think about getting close, and stay out of my way, or all that awaits you is regret.
With the traveler present, Zhao is more willing to be around others and to learn about society. Many are unaware of the role he plays in defending Liyue, but those who are aware refer to him as Conqueror of Demons.
A book, Ode to Windborn Wraith, outlines the Yaksha's purpose in Liyue, though it's not very well known.
The Liyue Qixing built Longshu Inn to give Zhao a home and a place to rest. Though avoidant, he gets along fairly well with the owners and works with them in his work of conquering demons. He even entrusted Dusky Ming to them, the ghost of a child who haunts the inn.
Something Zhao enjoys is almond tofu from the Longshu Inn. The food is irresistible to him, reminding him of the dreams he used to be forced to devour before being saved by the Geo Archon.
The Adepti in Liyue are known as Mighty and Illuminated, the illumination referring to their visions. Though, it's unknown if they receive their visions through the recognition of the gods as humans do. Zhao doesn't remember when he got his vision, only that it marked the beginning of an endless battle for him.
Visions? Desire? Huh. Do not judge Adepti by your mortal ideals. I have no desire.
The Lantern Rite is a celebration in Liyue that honors Adepti. Though he should be celebrated on this day, he has grown to dislike it as it stirs up the ancient god's hatred. During it, Zhao is particularly busy defending Liyue.
The Lantern Rite? The time for humans to discard their glowing trash into the sea has returned. How childish. Though, if you insist, I will go with you.
He is broken, but protects Liyue with every part of himself. He doesn't see himself as worthy of kindness, yet not even his mask can scare those who love him. Who is Bennett? Bennett is a young, optimistic, and hardworking member of the Adventurers Guild. He lives in Mondstadt and has a strong passion for adventure. Unfortunately, though, he is cursed with horribly bad luck.
I was born unlucky. That's just the way it is. And I've lived with it so long now that I'm just used to it. But you know what? Maybe it's a good thing. It means I know that whatever luck I do have left is gonna run out sooner rather than later. So I'd better make the most of my life while it lasts. You know, go on plenty of adventures, meet loads of people. I mean, if I didn't live like that, I may never have even met you. Can you imagine?
When adventuring, he typically has a hard time finding any treasure despite his efforts, and he always seems to run into overpowered enemies. He doesn't let bad luck game down though. He's always enthusiastic about adventuring and continuously tries to better himself. Though he is the leader of his very own Benny's Adventure team, he's the only remaining member after the others decided to leave after a series of unfortunate incidents. The team is actually on the verge of being dissolved because teams at the Adventurers Guild require 3 to 4 members, but his team still exists because Catherine doesn't have the heart to break the boy's dreams of being an adventurer.
I'm the leader of Benny's Adventure Team, a rising star in the Mondstadt Adventurers Guild. Where are the others? They're all on leave right now.
What happened to his teammates? Well, Jack, the first victim, nearly fell into a gigantic chasm that opened in front of him and Benny due to an unusual geoturbulence right as they were a few feet away from treasure. Royce was knocked unconscious in an explosion due to Klee mistaking the cave they were exploring as a giant rabbit hole. And as for Heckler, shortly after he joined the team, he got a bad case of diarrhea. It turned out to be due to food poisoning, but he blamed Bennett's bad luck. All of them claim to have taken leave, but none of them really plan on coming back.
You wish. Benny's adventure team has had no vacancies in ages. I mean, you must be spoiled for choice, right? Why'd you want to join the unluckiest adventurer alive anyway?
On an adventure once, Bennett became severely wounded, losing more blood than he really should. But despite this, he continued forward, and at the end of his journey, he found absolutely nothing. Eventually, he passed out due to blood loss, but when he woke up, he noticed his wounds had been mysteriously cauterized, and he noticed a pyrovision in his hand pulsing to his own heartbeat. Bennett believes that his vision is a sign from the gods that they haven't given up on him despite his bad luck.
Getting recognized by the gods was the last thing I expected, seeing as how I'm so unlucky all the time. But if the gods haven't given up on me, I guess that means I shouldn't give up on me either.
He was fully raised by Adventurers Guild members. At the end of a journey gone horribly wrong, an old adventurer found something he didn't expect, a baby. A child abandoned by the world itself. The old man figured this was the meaning to his journey, and before passing away due to injuries, he brought the baby back to the guild. His final words being will, adventure, and final treasure. The guild members named the baby Bennett and raised him as one of their own, an adventurer. Bennett has always referred to the Adventurers Guild members as his dads.
I like all kinds of things, but most of all, I like adventures. One day, I'm gonna find the most valuable treasure in the whole world, and then my dad's gonna have a better life, and the Mondstadt Adventurers Guild will be back in business.
Despite having many scars, Benny has an unusual tolerance for pain. He's just gotten used to it. He often visits Barbara, the deaconess of the Church of Favonius, for medical attention and bandages. She's always willing to help him and wants him to take better care of himself, which he's very grateful for. Often he surprises others because of his high pain tolerance and painful looking fighting style. Something Bennett always carries with him are extra bandages that he gets from Barbara, Catherine, his dads, or other adventurers he meets out in the wild. He keeps a collection of them in his utility pouch, and he uses them with care when needed. Benny sometimes wonders about the meaning of death. He's heard many great stories of the old man who once saved him, and the adventurers around him always have a toast at funerals to honor the lives of the fallen adventurers. And like many adventurers, he believes that a good death comes at the end of a life in pursuit of adventure, and their souls are returned to their homeland by Barbados. He once feared death, but after thinking it over, he came to the conclusion that death may be something fortunate at the end of an adventurous life. Not that he's ever very fortunate. What is Lantern Rite? Taking place around Chinese New Year, Lantern Rite is a huge yearly festival that takes place in Liyue, Genshin's nation based off China and designed similarly to Chinese architecture. The origins of Lantern Rite date back thousands of years to the Archon War. During this time, at night, Liyue's people would release lanterns into the sky, both to encourage those fighting and to act as a guide for the way home. After the war ended, releasing lanterns became a way of honoring those who lost their lives in the war. Since then, and over the decades, the practice has evolved into the Lantern Rite Festival, a celebration of Liyue's history, people, and the fallen adepti and defenders of Liyue. Unfortunately though, to this day, around the time of Lantern Rite is also the time in which the Archon War's fallen and defeated god's power is most active, which Zhao has to fight back throughout the entire festival. Citizens of Liyue all collectively celebrate and partake in the festival each year. It's believed by many that helping out with the festival could bring good luck in the year to come. Though the Ministry of Civil Affairs covers the majority of the costs, citizens often make donations, help supply materials, build the lanterns themselves, and set up shops for the annual Zhao Market and so on. The Zhao Markets are shops set up during this time by Liyue's business owners. They aren't used to make a profit though, as many donate their earnings to contribute to the building of the Mingzhao Lantern, the biggest and most significant lantern to be released each year. The Mingzhao Lantern is always modeled and based off of a fallen adepti who died protecting Liyue. Its size is determined by the amount of plasterite found within the year. We'll get to this element in a moment. Hundreds of Zhao lanterns are also built and released. These lanterns are smaller, individually made, and unique to each person who makes them. There is no one correct way to make a Zhao lantern. Now, what is plasterite? It's a special type of element found in Liyue known for its anti-gravitational properties after activation. Any object imbued with plasterite is able to share in its floating abilities. This is what makes the lanterns that are released float. Liyue's people gather as much of this rare element as they can throughout the year. The more they gather, the more Zhao lanterns and the bigger the Mingzhao lantern. Those involved inscribe their prayers in the plasterite in their lanterns for good fortune. This element is also what powers the Jade Chamber's floating mechanism. There are a few different types of plasterite, the most common being the green kind, as well as the more rare azurite, which is blue, and vermilionite, which is red. All of the glowing lanterns are released on the night of Lantern Rite, honoring Liyue's history and people and displaying a beautiful sight which can be seen from miles away. Who is Yae Miko? This powerful but mysterious woman is none other than the head shrine maiden at the Grand Narukami Shrine, and editor of her own successful publishing house. Yae is a kitsune and close, trusted friend of A, or the Raiden Shogun, Inazuma's Archon herself.
I am the Guji of the Grand Narukami Shrine. The purpose of my visit is to monitor your every move, for such is the order of the shrine. Oh, come on, don't be so nervous. It's only officialese, for goodness sake. I couldn't just go gallivanting around for no reason at all, could I? Now, come on, do something amusing for me.
Yae is a descendant of Kitsune, or a type of yokai that can be translated to fox spirit. Though don't get confused, they're not ghosts, they're seen as a type of fox with a long life and mysterious powers. In folklore, Kitsune are thought to possess magic and a higher intelligence that gets more powerful with age. They're often depicted with multiple tails, usually up to 9, which indicate their age and power. Yae can be seen with 5 tails when using her burst, and 1 with her elemental skill or plunging attack. They're said to have the ability to shapeshift into human or other form, which Yae is shown to be able to do, as it's talked about in her character stories, and we almost always see her in her human form since she refuses to reveal her fox form to the traveler. As a kitsune, she can be rather mischievous. This includes at her job as Guji and as the owner of Yae's publishing house. She's also impressively good at both manipulating and reading people. This often makes others like Goro and Toma terrified at the sight of her. The tricks she plays are usually elaborate and out of her own enjoyment. Though she's not all about pranks, she does have an emotional side and shows to care about those important to her and considers the countless yokai around Inazuma to be her friends.
My favorite pastime is reading other people's stories. My second favorite is watching other people squirm. If I could find a way to combine the two... oh, that would be entertainment in its purest form.
Yae Miko's personality is described with the analogy of mirror fragments. She can seem any sort of way she wants, cheerful, solemn, sympathetic, and nobody really knows the truth of her personality. Many have tried to figure her out, but very few have succeeded. She's able to blend into any situation, just how she blends in as a human. This isn't all because she's trying to hide something though, quite the opposite actually. She's just the type to do whatever she wants to do, whenever she wants to do it, and people get confused by that. At one time, a well-written and genre-targeted story manuscript was submitted to Yae by another one of the publishing house editors. Though they were sure their work was amazing, Yae Miko was not pleased with it. She gave the opinion that the book was shackled by the topic and not free enough. And though it was written in the format of other top sellers at the time, she told the writer not to focus on this because trends change with the decades, and to focus on the writing itself. A while later, another manuscript was submitted. It was titled Shogun Almighty, Reborn as Raiden. The other writers didn't really approve, but Yae Miko loved it. She was only concerned with one part, the author's name. She said it was too normal for a book like that, and so she gave them a new pen name.
I decided to found Yae Publishing House simply because I wished to read more interesting light novels, that's all. But it turns out that seeing frazzled authors scraping the bottom of the barrel in a desperate attempt to get their novels finished is where the real amusement comes from. You wouldn't believe some of the excuses they come up with when they're trying to get a deadline extension. Oh, so much more creative than the novels themselves.
Something Yae, as a long-living kitsune and servant of the Electro Archon, which seems to expand lifespans, has to deal with is boredom. Hundreds of years can seem to pass very quickly for her, and as the Guji, she can't always live as exciting of a life as she would always like. Such as, during ceremonies, Yae must perform her duties by attending every shrine ceremony, instead of partaking in the festivities. Though she doesn't see the issue with using her authority as Guji in order to create some entertainment for herself. Such as once ordering Naganohara fireworks to be dropped off by the Yashiro Commission to be set off after the ceremony. She's even mentioned this to the Raiden Shogun, telling her that she never told her she'd never be able to watch the festivities again as Guji. Fun and mischief keep Yae going throughout her everyday life. She also enjoys studying humanity, and certain like-minded people are able to catch her eye. One of these people being Kano Nana, a novel enthusiast who always seems to overly worry about Sayu. Sometimes Yae will watch as Sayu runs off, closely followed by an angry Kano Nana. She'll even sometimes give Kano wrong directions as to which way Sayu ran in order to prolong the chaos. Sometimes Yae will transform herself into an average human and descend from the mountain for some time in a town. She'll visit restaurants, the Asia bathhouse, getting fox fur stuck in the water, and every shop she can possibly find. And at the end of this adventure, she'll stop by Bantan Sango Detective Agency and tell them about all the missing animals she's heard about, and how desperately they need to be brought home, and sometimes this frustrates Kujo-Sara.
Humans are just fascinating creatures. That's why I'm so fond of them. They live such short lives, but for the time they're around, they shine as bright as the midday sun. There are some whose light never grows dim, even over great stretches of time. These are the lives that make for real page-turners.
A long time ago in Teyvat, the yokai such as Tengu, Oni, Tanuki, and Kitsune all used to walk among the humans. Under the Narukami, their powers are used to help the humans through an era of poverty. When seeking refuge in the mountains, they built a city near the sea, which turned into Inazuma. The lineage of Hakushi and Kitsune were some of the most well-known, and it's that line that have left many great stories. Whenever the yokai gathered, they would often share stories with one another. Kitsune Saigu was the organizer of such events, and would regularly host many many yokai. Yurakasai loved telling stories to the other yokai, as they would all listen intently. But it was young Yae Miko who would nitpick the details and go back and forth with him over it, until eventually Saigu would make them stop and continue, as the rest of the yokai wanted the story to be told. Some of these stories have been passed down through the generations, but today the yokai's remaining bloodlines are growing smaller and smaller. But Yae still remembers these long, fun nights. Maybe that's where she gets her love of storytelling. Not too long ago, more than half of the 5 artisan lineages of Inazuma were cut off due to a conspiracy. Many were all banished by the shogun. The Kamisato clan were impacted by this due to their failure in supervising their subordinates. But before the shogun could banish them, Yae Miko, who almost never involves herself in politics, stepped in. She saved them from that fate, and while their reputation still wasn't great, at least they were still around. Many people would speculate why the Guji would step in for them, wondering why she'd do something that seemed to be a greater risk than anything, and not wise. Many different stories popped up. Yae wanted people under her control for power, she did it because she suspected something was wrong with the situation, or even speculation that she was in secret talks with the clan itself. The speculations have never amounted to anything though, and Yae has never regretted her decision. The Fire Soothing Festival Committee was an organization run by the Tenryou Commission and managed by the Grand Narukami Shrine. Their goal was to pray for a lack of fires in the coming year, as many buildings in Inazuma were constructed of wood at the time, and a singular house fire could cause a lot of damage. Years later though, fire precautions would be much more common and serious injuries wouldn't often occur, yet the committee still remained. The Shrine Maidens would dance and the people of Inazuma would give donations, with the proceeds being split 40-60 between the Shrine and the Tenryou Commission. When Yae was having financial issues when starting Yae's publishing house, she looked into the services that the Shrine ran and came across this old committee. She pointed out that all the work is done by the Shrine Maidens, so why does Mora go to the Tenryou Commission? After some changes in preparation, instead of featuring dancing Shrine Maidens, that year's Fire Soothing Festival would feature a light novel submission contest. All of the profits went to the Shrine's coffers, though the Tenryou commissioners weren't very happy about that, and Yae cared little and sent them on their way when they showed up to her publishing house. Something Yae Miko absolutely loves is fried tofu. As a kitsune, she can hardly resist its delicious flavor.
Heat oil on a medium-high flame in a pot. Add the tofu and reduce the heat to a low flame. Cook until golden brown, take it out, then serve piping hot. There you have it, fried tofu. There's nothing more delicious in this world. Well, I've told you how to make it, have I not? Why are you still standing there?
Yae Miko likes to have fun with stories of how she got her vision. Speaking to the traveler, she tells them stories of a contest of magic where her and the other Shrine Maidens marched up Mount Yugo. They were faced with an enemy, and just before they struck, a bolt of lightning came down before Yae, presenting a vision. The traveler questioned if that's what really happened, and Yae replied with another story about a ramen duel. The traveler didn't believe this silly story either. Yae loves the traveler's curiosity, asking if they'd believe her if she told them that her vision was purely ornamental and just for show.
You're saying you like how I wear my vision? You certainly have an eye for a priceless treasure. Well then, I bet you'd like to pet it.
So, do we really know how Yae Miko got her vision? I'm afraid this story's kind of lost to time and Yae's playfulness. Who is Yelan? Though very reliable, this mysterious but intelligent woman definitely seems to have her secrets. While claiming to work for the Ministry of Civil Affairs in Liyue, she's almost never present. Many people question where she gets her sharp intelligence from. So, who exactly is she?
Hello, traveler. Call me Yelan. I think you may need my help, and I just so happen to be interested in some information you have. In other words, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours.
While very pleasant and polite to those around her, her identity has always been a mystery. Yelan tends to be a very secretive and mysterious person. Though she keeps to herself a lot, she's extremely intelligent and powerful. While she works for the Ministry of Civil Affairs, she's almost always absent and off doing her own thing. When she is at work, it is said that she uses psychological tactics to capture her targets. Her absence is tolerated by Ningguang, while Keqing appreciates her work, though she does question her. Outside of work, Yelan tends to be carefree and calm. She enjoys naps and is willing to adjust her schedule as needed, mainly due to her hereditary physical frailty. She likes doing all of her tasks for the day at once and then resting for the rest of the day afterwards.
The Qixing know Liyue like the back of their hands, but there's certain information out there that can only be obtained using more specialized methods. That's my area of expertise, so I generally take care of all those assignments myself. When I'm tracking a target, I like to put psychological pressure on them. In the process of trying to shake me off, they'll start to panic, bring in reinforcements, alter their plan. They keep going like this until eventually, they've exposed everything I need to know.
People who know of Yelan, specifically those who get themselves into trouble, look forward to meeting her. They think that she'll help them get out of trouble or be their ally. The issue is, it's not just the allies that believe this, it's the enemies too. Sometimes she'll pick a side and offer to help, but those she helps may soon see themselves on the opposite side of her helping. Many of those who have fallen into her trap have vowed to take their revenge on her, but none of them have even come close to succeeding. Also, everyone who meets her as a different identity, so many wonder when is she really telling the truth. When her true identity is revealed, those interested in hearing the truth may not be around anymore to hear it. Yelan is not somebody that you want to mess with. A lot of Liyue citizens believe that she's a spy of some kind for some mysterious organization, purposely stirring up conflict to manipulate others for her own wants and needs. Some believe that she does it purely out of her own enjoyment without affiliation with any sort of organization. Either way, she's still a mystery, and the rumors only add to it. The only way to get the truth would be to ask her yourself, but Yelan tends to be the one that finds others, and not the other way around.
Navigating the world is a whole lot easier with a few different identities to choose from. Need me to come up with some for you?
Now, this next part is a bit strange. Occasionally, pharmacies in Liyue will receive interesting patients, to say the least. These patients, claiming to be all different types of people from all over Teyvat, seem to enjoy pain. They seem to enjoy the stinging of their skin when pharmacists apply remedies to their wounds, some even going as far as to not wanting anesthetic when going through painful therapies or operations. The thing is, all of these people are Yelan, disguised as one of her multiple identities. The physicians, amazed by their patients' high pain tolerance, are always too distracted to find out that it's all the same person. She, like anyone else, does need medical care from time to time, especially in her line of work and the inevitable exposure to danger. Though Yelan is no different from the average person with wants and needs, very few things are able to grab her interest. She travels to far-off lands, but traveling is bland to her. She is well-read and well-versed, yet doesn't particularly enjoy reading. She knows what to say to others to get what she wants, yet she takes no joy in playing mind games. Often she rolls dice to decide how to pass her time. Blindness is synonymous to blindness, while thrills afford clarity, is a quote from Yelan, and a philosophy that she lives her life by, all while managing to stick to the shadows.
In my free time, I live life completely at random. It's quite simple. I make a list of things to do, then I roll the dice to decide which one I'm going to do next. It's a surprisingly fun game, and it's really broadened my mind. In that sense, it's been quite helpful where my job is concerned.
Something interesting about Yelan is her high spice tolerance. Even Zhangling's spiciest dish isn't enough to faze her. She enjoys eating fresh or dry Jaeyun chilies. Due to her strange liking of pain maybe, spicy foods are the only things that seem to satisfy her. Though her name does not appear on any of the records of the Ministry of Civil Affairs, Yelan is a special intelligence officer that reports directly to Ningguang. She doesn't see herself as anyone's subordinate. The way she sees it, her work with Ningguang is just a way of honoring a sort of pact. Ningguang wants information that is dangerous to get. Yelan enjoys navigating her way through danger as it gives her a sense of achievement. It's uncertain when their business exchange relationship began. Yelan is known outside of Liyue as well, and many other nations of Teyvat, even stretching as far as the Abyss. For the most part though, she enjoys spending her time in the areas around the chasm and the underground of the chasm. She has a strange, instinctual calling to it, as her ancestors once did. Her ancestors being heroes who either died there or went insane within the chasm's depths while fighting monsters from deep below. Yelan has always been curious about what sort of dark energy is drawing her there, even despite her better judgment. With the help of her companions lifting the seal of the chasm's depths, she was able to unveil a hidden past of her ancestors. One day, with her craving of danger, she will walk a similar path as them. She makes it her life's mission to not let Liyue fall into unseen danger as it did hundreds of years ago during the time of her ancestors. Collecting intelligence is her top priority, no matter the cost. For the Ministry of Civil Affairs, Yelan has collected 2 lists of names. A special attention list, short with only a few names, one of which being the Traveler. The people on this list could easily bring danger or harm to Liyue. The other list is a more classified secret intelligence list. Those that are on that list are the real threats to Liyue, perhaps Abyss Mages, Fatui Harbingers, or even the gods themselves. All of these people on the two lists, Yelan unknowingly keeps a special eye on. This work greatly pleases her. It is said by the locals to never play dice with anyone you don't know at the Yangsheng Tea House, or else terrible things might happen to you. There are rumors of a terrifying woman and to ignore her if she invites you to play. This woman, of course, is Yelan in one of her many disguises. A while ago, after the Fatui lost control of the tea house, Yelan used the opportunity to take control and to turn it into a secret base. All different types of people come through, and it's a great source of intel. From time to time, Yelan comes in, just pretending to be a regular customer, having some tea and playing some games. Though with her intelligence skills, she's always able to outwit her opponents. Those who lose are best advised to accept the loss, and those cheating are advised to do the same. Reasoning isn't really a concept at the Yangsheng Tea House, especially not with this mysterious woman.
Some say the boss of Yenshan Tea House is a young entrepreneur who got rich overnight. Some say there's a sickly and frail senior employee of the Ministry of Civil Affairs living as a hermit outside the city. Others say you should stay away from restricted areas, or you'll get haunted by a blue ghost. Obviously, most civilians have never heard the name Yelan before, so you can safely laugh off all these rumors.
Through her career, there is one mission that stands out to Yelan as both a victory and a loss. It was a loss because she lost a family heirloom, a special bracelet that could be used as a simple form of communication when tethered to the other. She only has one now, which is useless aside from just being an accessory. The winning part though was that her enemy, Regrator, the 9th of the Fatui Harbingers, didn't get the upper hand either. Yelan intercepted a trade route run by him, capturing something of equal value to her bracelet. Fur from a strange mythical beast that died centuries ago, it being so powerful that its body is still intact. A robe made from this fur would be worth a fortune, and that was Regrator's plan as an offering to the Tsaritsa. Combining it with some yarn from Liyue, Yelan used the fur to make her own outfit.
The bracelet on my right hand? I suppose there's no harm in telling you. It contains a kind of magic used by our clan, and it can send simple messages. The meaning of those messages is buried in the blue light, and only I can decipher them.
Though Yelan today is always alone in her missions, it wasn't always that way. She once had a team of others who, like her, stuck to the darkness. They all looked out for one another. Back then, Yelan did not understand that her skills and tricks could not solve everything for her, and as a result, many members of her team were killed on missions, though they had all been prepared for that fate. After a mission investigating the Abyss, Yelan found herself alone, and for the first time, stopped for a long time. This continued for so long that Ningguang visited Yelan's wooden hut personally one day, understanding that if Yelan wanted to quit, she could, and saying that she trusted her. Yelan only replied by saying that they should no longer involve ordinary people in their work. With Yelan walking out of the hut, Ningguang could see blood dripping from Yelan's fingers, the result of hard, intense archery training. Yelan fired an arrow into the sky, the arrow bursting into water as well as the many other arrows of water that shot up from nearby water sources in the mountains, as if replying to a call from the gods themselves. As it exploded into a shower, only a faint glowing pillar of light could be seen in Yelan's hand, a hard-earned hydro vision.
Wherever there's important information to be found, the stakes involved in extracting it are often fatal. It doesn't matter how big or reliable the team under you may be, you can never completely rule out the risk. The bottom line is, have enough force at your fingertips to control the situation. I got lucky. I got my vision just a few days after realizing that. Otherwise, you'd probably be talking to a very disheveled-looking ghost right now.
Who is Yoimiya? One of the most beloved, friendly, and inspiring people of Inazuma. She's known for her work as a pyrotechnician at Naganohara Fireworks, her family business where she creates beautiful fireworks to symbolize others' hopes and dreams. Many celebrations are held across Inazuma every year, many having elaborate firework displays, all thanks to Yoimiya. She's become a household name and known as the Queen of the Summer Festival. Citizens of Inazuma love her displays. With the passion and creativity she puts into them, they're always a spectacular sight.
Welcome to Naganohara.
my name's Yoimiya. Just let me know if you need anything. We have kushikatsu, egg roll... Wait, no, we're not a restaurant. Oh, we make fireworks. Like these, see? Sparkling, crackling little fireworks.
The Naganohara Fireworks Show started over a century ago when the Yashiro Commission first organized a fireworks display with commemoration as the theme. Fireworks since have become much more common, and because of the citizens' involvement, the firework displays are able to continue annually, even despite the risk of fire hazards that the Yashiro Commission and Shrine Maidens always have to take precautions for. Everyone in Inazuma City looks forward to Yoimiya's shows, and even those from other nations. Liyue's Lantern Rite uses her fireworks as well. Even though the transportation of goods to Liyue is technically illegal, she has Beidou for that.
Beido's been helping me ship my fireworks out ever since Inazuma was locked down. I prepared a huge boat-shaped firework just to surprise her. And when the Crux fleet was about to leave, this firework went whoosh right in front of their eyes, straight into the sky. The sailors got such a huge fright. They thought one of their ships had somehow flown off. But Beidou liked that trick very much, saying that it was exactly what a pleasant surprise should be. Very pleasant and a surprise.
The year that Yoimiya took over her family business, they had one of their most spectacular shows. Before the show started, Ayaka informed Yoimiya that the Raiden Shogun herself would be watching, and to include her emblem. Yoimiya then placed thousands of firework launch tubes around Inazuma City, and for the finale of the display, launched them all. The fireworks were set at just the right angle to depict the gigantic picture scroll of Inazuma City. The fireworks also had an angling trick, and from a certain spot they could be seen as a giant image of the Shogun's house crest. This, as her very first performance, won her the praise of the Inazuma people and the Raiden Shogun herself. Yoimiya craves social interaction, taking every opportunity she can to talk with others about her endless topics and ideas. Actually, if there's no one for her to talk to, she finds it hard to focus on her work. Chatting with guests and customers is her way of understanding their thought process on how the best fireworks can be crafted for them. After her work, sitting down and chatting with guests over tea is how she rewards herself, as well as talking with her neighbors and giving them gifts. She's careful to never cross any boundaries though, and knows how to balance between listening and speaking in her conversations. She never comes off as indifferent, uninterested, or the opposite, overly invested. Yoimiya is fascinated by everyone's different viewpoints. Those who talk with her usually leave in a good mood.
Nah, I don't worry about loose lips, sinking ships. The emotions contained in the words people say don't lie. Misunderstandings that arise from saying things wrongly can be resolved if you just talk more. But if you say nothing, the other person won't understand what you mean, and they can't get closer to you.
After taking over the fireworks shop, she's become a lot closer with her neighbors, many of which see her as an old friend and invite her over to sit and talk. Due to her caring nature, she's often seen playing with and caring for children and keeping them company. By many of the children of Inazuma, she's seen as a big sister. The purity of children brings her joy, and she wants each of them to enjoy their childhood innocence before they are forced to face the harsh realities of Inazuma. Children aren't the only ones she wants to help though. Yoimiya will happily have a deep conversation with anyone willing to open up to her about their troubles and will do her best to help them. Yoimiya believes in the power of language, and believes that there's nothing that can't be talked through.
Ooh, let's have a game of rock, paper, scissors. On my count now. Rock, paper, scissors. Woohoo! I won! I didn't change my choice halfway. Why would I ever do that?
She also tends to be a free spirit. Often, those going after perfection tend to be highly self-disciplined, but Yoimiya is almost the opposite. She tends to do what she wants when she wants, and often takes unscheduled breaks from her work. Sometimes she'll work late hours into the night when she misses work during the day, distracted by conversations. But on these nights, she'll often climb to the highest point so she can watch the sunrise before heading to sleep for the day. She often gains inspiration from her fireworks from the pretty orange-red skies, imagining them as she drifts off to sleep. Sometimes her neighbors find her sleeping in interesting places, like stopped water wheels, eaves, and even on tree branches. Thankfully though, she hasn't ever been seriously injured from falling off of these places while asleep, aside from a few scrapes. At other times, she'll sleep until midnight before heading out for a walk, which usually turns into a nighttime adventure, whether she's alone or with friends. Yoimiya loves the sense of freedom that she gives herself, often talking about how interesting it's made her life. She does take a priority in her work though, around the time of festivals festivals or special events. Along with fireworks, Yoimiya also sells trinkets at her shop, many of them being secretly imported from other nations by Beidou. A lot of these games and trinkets are popular with the children, but they're loved just as much by the adults, such as Arataki Ito, who buys her specially made knickknacks to bring to challenge anyone who he declares his nemesis. Some of these knickknacks can be useful in daily life too, such as Yoimiya's katydid coil, a ring containing flammables and spices used to repel mosquitoes when hung up in the summer. Many of the people compliment Yoimiya on her excellent craftsmanship. She's willing to help others with special requests too, though she often states she runs a fireworks shop, not an everything shop. She makes do though, even if her earnings for a whole day are only enough to afford her a few snacks. In recent years, mostly due to an old folk song, children have been bringing Yoimiya shiny trinkets. They believe because of the song lyrics that if they exchange her something shiny for fireworks and light the fireworks, a wish of theirs will come true in the future. At first Yoimiya was troubled by this, but eventually she just played along and accepted whatever the children would bring her, such as rocks and seashells. However, she would not accept expensive items or anything of worth, and would tell the children to return them to their owners. The shininess of an object wasn't very important to her either, but what was important was that she was keeping the dreams of children and their creativity and imaginations alive. Something Yoimiya always has with her is her candy box, which because of its decorations has earned the name Sweet Pearl. She often collects different candies from every store she visits and places them in her box, and every time she encounters a happy event, she eats a piece of candy, and if she's with others, she'll happily share. The speed at which the box lightens is an important measure of happiness for her. Sometimes when she's not paying attention, she accidentally uses it as a hair accessory due to the decorations on it being so similar to the one she usually wears. Or sometimes she purposely does it and gives candy to anyone who notices. Interesting fact, with each purchase of a firework, Yoimiya includes a special slip only readable by the Naganahara family. It's a tradition they've done for years. It allows her to recreate the exact same firework order for them.
Our family has a long tradition in which we will give every client who orders customized fireworks a note. Its contents can only be understood by our family, and it records the specific formula of the fireworks that were ordered. Whether 10 years or 100 years pass, our family can make exactly the same fireworks as they did in the past, so long as the client brings us that note.
One night, after taking over the family business, Yoimiya couldn't sleep, so she instead continued her research. Suddenly, she heard a sound, and a bright red object fell into one of the unused firework launch tubes. It turned out to be a pyrovision. At first, Yoimiya didn't know what it was, but used its pyro abilities as a lighter before eventually tossing it aside. Her father found it one day in a storage room and gave it back to her, explaining its significance and mysterious powers. And since, she has worn it and used it every day, and because of it, she's become much more skilled with the manipulation of fire.
Let me let you in on a little secret. When I first received my vision, I used it as a flint to light fireworks and boil water, before returning home, chucking it into a storeroom, and forgetting all about it. In the end, it was my father who found it and told me that it was a precious item that I should keep safe. At least it didn't get taken back by our dear Archon.
Though she does question why the gods favor her, an ordinary girl and pyrotechnician, asking if even the gods enjoy her fireworks shows?